your favorite villain?
My favorite villain? I kind of like Diddy.
When people say I'm a troll, I say,
I don't know why you're saying I'm trolling people. I'm doing what you've conditioned me to do.
Jaguar Wright has delivered a blistering and highly charged critique of the Netflix documentary produced by 50 Cent on Sean Diddy Combs, titled Sean Combs, The Reckoning. She emphatically states that the final version streamed on the platform only scratches the surface of a much more profound and disturbing narrative. In her view, audiences were presented with merely a fragmented glimpse, a superficial overview, while the true essence of the events, including critical testimonies, pivotal recorded evidence, and landmark moments from within the music industry, were deliberately omitted. Wright insists that this exclusion was not accidental but a calculated decision, with Netflix and the production team opting to withhold explosive material that could have altered public understanding entirely, thereby ensuring that the most damning aspects of the story remain shrouded in secrecy and protected from full exposure.
Wait, it was done too well. It left out too many things.
So can you speak on Curtis Jackson? 50 Cent said that this is the first one. He said that there's hundreds of hours of more footage.
I'm sure there was hundreds of hours of shit that was confiscated from all of Diddy's homes in that HSI raid that never made it to the trial. I wonder where.
In a recently released and intensely compelling interview, Jaguar Wright details her personal investigation into the omissions from 50 Cent's documentary. She explains that, upon viewing the series, she immediately contacted Gene Deal, Diddy's former longtime security chief and a figure deeply embedded in the inner workings of Bad Boy Entertainment. Deal, with his unparalleled insider perspective, claims to have observed firsthand a range of alarming behaviors, including intense pressures, tightly guarded inner circles, and incidents that were discreetly handled to avoid public scrutiny. His notable absence from what was billed as a comprehensive exposé on Diddy's downfall struck Wright as profoundly suspicious and telling. Their conversation, according to Wright, uncovered layers of context, specific incidents, and corroborating details that she firmly believes were purposely excised from the final edit, resulting in a version of events that was significantly diluted and less confrontational than the raw truth demanded.
Would you call the documentary educational, informational, entertaining? What would you say this documentary?
Gaslighting.
Gaslighting.
And it's sad because there's a lot of stuff in there that's true. But there's a...
Jaguar Wright highlights the suspicious timing of the documentary's release alongside its heavy dependence on recycled and well-known anecdotes as clear indicators that the project was compromised from the start. She argues convincingly that the series was never intended as a genuine pursuit of transparency or justice, but rather as a strategic tool to control and manipulate the evolving public narrative around Diddy. By relying extensively on archival clips that had already circulated widely, rehashing incidents long familiar to the industry and the public, and centering on stories that had become somewhat normalized or accepted over time, the documentary failed to break new ground or challenge entrenched perceptions. Instead, it served to divert attention away from more explosive revelations, carefully molding viewer opinions, and effectively safeguarding the most sensitive and incriminating information from ever seeing the light of day.
Over, I agree. Like, that's the thing. The story's not even being told. Because in order to tell the actual whole story, you would have to include everyone that is involved. No, this is about saving the industry and blaming it all on Diddy. Saving the industry and blaming it all on Diddy. Okay, Diddy's going to jail. He's going to do his time. I don't know what that appeal is looking like right now. Because see, the one thing that all of this documentary shit is doing is definitely fucking up his possibility for an appeal to get out early. Especially with the judge and them and the appeal board having to look at the footage of him sitting there with Mark Agnifilo, pretty much working on how to fix the trial.
And for him to be watching the feds watching him.
Yeah, filming the feds. Why?
Wright draws attention to a long-standing issue in media coverage of Diddy. Major news outlets and platforms reportedly possessed footage of grave incidents, including those involving Diddy and his former girlfriend Cassie, for years without releasing it to the public. She poses a critical question about the motivations behind this delay, wondering aloud why substantial actions or disclosures only materialized after the statutory periods for certain legal prosecutions had expired, rendering accountability more difficult. The documentary, she points out, completely sidesteps this glaring inconsistency, avoiding any meaningful exploration of it. Wright views this as evading the central inquiry. If the production purported to conduct a thorough investigation into Diddy's alleged misconduct, why did it refrain from scrutinizing the roles of other prominent associates, enablers, and industry decision-makers who might have contributed to or benefited from the systemic issues, ultimately leaving the broader network and power structures intact and unexamined?
They did what they needed to do in this documentary. The whole objective of this documentary was to blame it all on Diddy. The devil made me do it, blame it all on Diddy, and the rest of the industry is nothing like this. Like when Curtis Jackson sat there in his interview with Robin and sat there and said, I did this because I don't want people thinking that the hip hop community is okay with this kind of behavior. I don't want them thinking that, we're just going to be silent while all of this is going on. Like we're okay with this kind of behavior. And my thing is So now you speaking for all of hip hop, and all of hip hop is uncomfortable with this. Meanwhile, you got people like Jaguar who, on the low key, allegedly, Gene Deal has exposed for having his own nude tryst freak-offs with Diddy.
In that courtroom.
Do you think that hip-hop culture was on trial as much as Sean Combs was?
Look, if I didn't say anything, you would interpret it as the hip-hop is fine with his behaviors. There's no one else being vocal. So you would look at it and just say, because that mind your business, or let me not say nothing about nothing, or those things, it would allow the entire culture to register as if they're for that behavior.
If Sean Combs watches this, what do you think he's going to feel?
Like, wow, this is amazing. I think he's going to say this is the best documentary I've seen in a long time. Because you'll see people saying that. I mean, he may feel a different way about pieces and bits of it, but he knows.
One of the documentary's most hyped elements, the inclusion of purportedly exclusive, never-before-seen footage that 50 Cent boasted about acquiring, comes under fierce scrutiny from Jaguar Wright. She recalls that, at the time of the project's initial announcement, reports indicated 50 Cent did not yet possess this material, raising profound questions about the authenticity and timing of its acquisition. This discrepancy leads her to speculate that elements of the production appeared premeditated and orchestrated rather than arising organically from investigative journalism. In her assessment, this transforms the entire series from a bold truth-telling endeavor into a meticulously crafted narrative where specific aspects were amplified to steer viewer focus, fostering the illusion of comprehensive revelation while subtly directing audiences away from the unvarnished, multifaceted reality that exists beneath the surface.
He announced he was going to be doing the documentary December 2023 with Netflix. And the star footage that you use to get people to re-upload or resubscribe to Netflix to make this the #1 in their TV shows division for almost 2 weeks straight. Beating out Stranger Things. How much stranger is that?
I'm not Beckham.
This footage didn't even exist when you said you were going to be doing this documentary. So we've got a videographer, a rogue videographer that has this very, very, very explosive, very explosive footage of him literally sitting on camera, planning how to go after survivors, how to poison the jury pool, how to fix his trial in advance before he's even arrested. I mean, like, is anybody not forgetting when Mark Garrett, when Mark Agnifilo was sitting there talking to the sons in the hallway, and they're sitting there filming, and he's sitting up there. Yeah, well, see, what we got to do is we got to go and we got to put countersuits on all of these people. We have to create lawsuits ourselves. He's sitting there talking about creating lawsuits. to affect public perception.
Gene Deal, Diddy's ex-bodyguard with intimate knowledge of the mogul's operations, made the deliberate choice to withdraw from any involvement in the documentary after discovering that 50 Cent lacked complete authority over the final product. As the holder of vital archival records, personal photographs, and direct eyewitness accounts accumulated over decades, Deal engaged in extensive discussions with 50 Cent. These revealed that ultimate control over content selection, footage usage, participant compensation, and narrative framing rested squarely with Netflix executives and the production company. Recognizing that the story would inevitably be sanitized, restricted, and molded to fit a predetermined agenda rather than presented in its raw and unedited entirety, Deal opted to disengage entirely, preserving what he considers the authentic and uncompromised account of events for potential future disclosure.
Going to spare no cost in doing this because he wanted to tell the story, and he wanted to tell the story like it was supposed to be told and everything like that. I said, yeah, okay. So then the director, I got to get her name, man, because it don't even sound. I want to put her on blast because she was telling me, she was saying to me that what I was asking for was crazy, and they wasn't spending money like that. I'm talking about, you got footage, you got clothing, you got. I was doing footage. I had pictures, all the stuff that I had. You could figure out a way to pay a brother and stuff like that. And then I was telling her about some prices that I've already received, and I had the invoices to show it. And then she was calling me like I was lying. I was like, yo, who do you think you talking to? You know what I'm saying? And she was talking about, there's no way nobody paid. Nobody what? I say, first of all you people come with these documentaries and stuff. The first thing you tell me, y'all tell these people out here that y'all don't pay, and y'all pay. You give, if you can make a picture look like $10,000-$15,000, you know what I'm saying? You can sit here and tell me that you're going to pay me for my time sitting right down here with y'all. You understand? So then, one thing led to another. And I was like, all right, well, then, F you. I spoke to 50. And then she said 50. And this is exact words that came out her mouth. 50 does not determine what goes in and goes out of this documentary. And he definitely don't pay. He determine what somebody get paid. It's not his documentary like that. I was like, oh, so if it's not his documentary and I spoke to him like that, I don't need to be doing nothing with you because I'm doing this on the strength of him. But you going to pay me if the 50 didn't have the power to do anything, but they using his name to like push the whole documentary. And that's what it was about. So that's why you don't see a cameo other than the pictures they used of me on the film in the documentary. I got like 3 or 4 pictures in the documentary that I've seen of myself. Some people say they saw more, but I know three different times where I was certain places that you could actually see me in the documentary, and that's the only thing you're going to get. But the stories that they told in the documentary, bro, come on. They could have went a whole lot deeper. They could have did.
Gene Deal has publicly affirmed and expanded upon every assertion made by Jaguar Wright, emphasizing that his contributions are grounded in tangible evidence rather than mere speculation or hearsay. Over the years, he has meticulously preserved a substantial archive of supporting materials, encompassing audio recordings, photographic evidence, official documents, and detailed chronological records. Deal recounts submitting portions of this collection to the documentary's production team in good faith. However, when he sought equitable remuneration for his extensive contributions, expertise, and the risks involved in sharing sensitive information, his requests were summarily rejected. This treatment convinced him that the project's priorities lay not in uncovering or disseminating the complete truth, but in securing superficial on-camera appearances designed to maintain viewer interest, fill runtime, and actively suppress the emergence of more profound and disruptive details.
Got a Diddy leading up to him getting arrested, and how you feel about all that, man?
Well, what I feel about the documentary, they left a whole lot of key things out. If they was going to do something and they're going to say in the reckoning of Sean Combs, the reckoning, or Diddy, the reckoning and stuff like that, it should have been a lot of people that we lost because of him. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't only Big. It wasn't only Tupac. You understand? For the atmosphere that he put those kids in, you got a guy named Anthony Wolf Jones. who was from Bad Boy, from its conception, is doing security and being one of the financiers of Puff having to have some money to keep Big and Craig Mack around before he got to Clyde Davis. You know what I'm saying? They wasn't able to tell that story because they didn't have no intel on that story or what went down, or they didn't do their investigations right, which he also led up to the reason why Wolf ain't here today. You understand? They didn't tell that story. They didn't tell a story about Jessica Rosenbaum, who was at the city college.
Both Jaguar Wright and Gene Deal contend that certain segments included in the documentary possess significant evidentiary value with potential legal ramifications, asserting that even members of Diddy's defense team were caught off guard by the revelation that specific private conversations had been captured without their knowledge or consent. They posit that presenting such material to a jury could have bolstered ongoing federal probes by demonstrating efforts to manipulate public opinion or interfere with judicial processes. Adding to the controversy, they criticize the documentary for apparently altering or reframing the provenance of this footage, which sows confusion regarding its legitimacy, introduces selective editing biases, and obstructs access to the holistic context necessary for informed judgment.
Can you imagine if they had had any testimony from Little Rod and the footage that he had from that incident, that firearm incident where the guy G was damn near mortally wounded and was losing his life, and the footage that he had from that. Can you imagine if that had been shown to the jury?
I can, man.
Like, why not? If it was available for them to get it from Little Rod to put it in a documentary, and Little Rod hasn't gone to trial yet, then why in God's name hasn't any, why did any of this make it to the feds?
That's a great question. Why didn't they even subpoena or talk to?
50, Curtis Jackson announced in December of 2023, after Cassie's lawsuit came out, that he was going to be doing his own documentary. Isn't it very clever that all of this, alarming and stuff didn't come out of his documentary until almost 6 months after his verdict came in? 2 months after he had been sentenced? It was almost as if they were holding the documentary to not get in the way of his trial. Like, that's the thing that's tripping me out when it's coming to all of this Curtis Jackson praise that's coming on. And there's a lot of people. If he didn't get paid, usually it's like 90 days before you start, you got to put in an invoice and all of that stuff. Like, his business machine was still businessing. You telling me nobody around him. That sounds like a setup to me.
Sounds like a setup.
It sounds like a setup to me. And when you think about the fact that, another conversation that we've been having, a lot of people aren't paying attention to the money behind the machine. BlackRock, Vanguard, owners of Diageo, the company that Diddy tried to go after and had to settle out of court for, with sealed findings, and nobody really knows how that turned out before his life got turned upside down and HSI came in raiding, grabbing all kinds of evidence and all kinds of stuff. They're part owners in Netflix. Did you know that?
That's information.
The very company that has allegedly been going out of their way to work with the higher ups to make Diddy's life a living hell have a stake in the platform that's now ruining what's left of his reputation worldwide.
Critics widely agree that one undeniable consequence of Sean Combs' The Reckoning has been its adverse impact on Diddy's appellate prospects. The series features previously undisclosed recordings depicting intimate strategy sessions and candid exchanges between Diddy and his attorneys, material that could undermine his position in post-conviction proceedings. Compounding this, allegations surfaced that certain attorney-client communications were recorded surreptitiously, prompting outrage and dismay among Diddy's legal representatives over the public exposure of privileged discussions. This has fostered a broader perception that the documentary's release carries repercussions extending well into the legal arena, potentially influencing ongoing cases and public discourse far beyond its role as entertainment.
This is awful that Diddy owes his life to Mark Agnifilo, literally his life, because he could have gotten life in prison were it not for Mark Agnifilo, his defense lawyer, who had a brilliant strategy. And Diddy screwed him over when he hired this videographer to chronicle his life without telling Mark Agnifilo that when Diddy and Mark were on the phone, this videographer was recording what Mark clearly expected to be an attorney-client privileged relationship. Now, it is true that the client holds that privilege. The lawyer doesn't. But Mark's clear expectation was that this was a private conversation. These were private conversations. And that he and Diddy could talk openly. And Mark could talk to Diddy not just as a client, but as a person, and tried to guide him in a time leading up to his arrest. And unbeknownst to Mark Agnifilo, Diddy has got this guy recording the conversation as he's sitting there saying, "You are screwing this up. You are messing up this case. We're losing." And knowing that that's on tape. And it's almost like he's performing.
The documentary directs considerable scrutiny toward Diddy's legal counsel, implying that they possessed advanced knowledge of critical allegations or incidents without taking appropriate remedial steps. Detractors maintain that if the presented footage substantiates such awareness coupled with inaction, it could trigger professional ethics reviews, disciplinary actions, or even license suspensions for the involved attorneys. Reports suggest that Diddy personally authorized the transfer of this sensitive material to the production team, inadvertently, or perhaps strategically, thrusting his own defenders into the harsh glare of public examination and prompting uncomfortable inquiries into the extent of collective knowledge and the deliberate concealment of compromising information within his inner circle.
The truth is, they should all be under review by the bar associations that they're registered to. All of their licenses should be up for termination. With the shit that we saw in that documentary, with the way Mark Agnifilo was sitting there talking about filing lawsuits, filing fake lawsuits, creating all kinds of hoopla, that shit was on film. Lawyers ain't supposed to be talking that shit.
Yeah, those are strategies that you're not supposed to actually see.
Strategies?
Hey.
It is against the law. It's against the fucking law. That's why that black lawyer that left said, I cannot sit here and represent this. I can't represent this dude with the kind of shit that they doing. He wasn't interested in putting his motherfucking license on the line. But you get a weirdo, one the so-called survivor like Nicole Westmoreland, who's willing to get on the stand and cry for Diddy.
These developments unfold against the backdrop of Diddy's active appeal process following his conviction. His legal team has expressed profound frustration, finding themselves embroiled in a self-inflicted public relations and professional crisis stemming directly from the handover of materials to Netflix. Rather than bolstering Diddy's defense or rehabilitating his image, the documentary has intensified pressure on his attorneys during a pivotal phase of litigation, forcing them to contend with external fallout originating from decisions within Diddy's own camp, as opposed to solely adversarial forces.
Appeal from hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs. His defense team is seeking his immediate release from federal prison, calling his 50-month sentence on charges of transportation for prostitution excessive. CB Cotton has the details live from our New York newsroom. Good to see you, CB.
Hey, Lydia. Well, once one of the most powerful names in hip-hop, Sean Diddy Combs is now behind bars at that federal facility in Fort Dix, New Jersey, but his legal team says he should have never been sent there for this long. So on Tuesday, in an 84-page filing, Combs' attorneys asked a New York federal appeals court to immediately release Combs and send the case back for a new sentencing or grant him an acquittal. In July, a jury found Combs guilty on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution prosecution and acquitted him of the most serious charges, racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. In the fall, the judge then sentenced Combs to a little more than 4 years behind bars, citing testimony from former girlfriends who said they felt pressured to participate in drug-fueled sex parties with male escorts called hotel nights or freak-offs. But the rapper's lawyers argue this sentence was punishment for crimes that the jury rejected. They wrote in the filing, quote, "He sits in prison today serving a 50-month sentence because the district judge acted as a 13th juror. The judge defied the jury's verdict and found Combs, quote, coerced, exploited, and forced his girlfriends to have sex and led a criminal conspiracy."
Critics now contend that the stakes extend beyond Diddy's individual appeal, encompassing potential jeopardy for his entire legal representation. The series is portrayed as exerting immense strain on both the defendant and his counsel, subjecting them to rigorous public and professional oversight while highlighting vulnerabilities that could lead to severe repercussions. In response, sources indicate that Diddy's team has aggressively countered by demanding the immediate removal of the docuseries from Netflix, issuing formal cease and desist orders, and signaling intent to pursue substantial litigation against 50 Cent, the director, and the streaming giant, with potential damages reportedly exceeding $1 billion. Meanwhile, Sean Diddy Combs' camp continues efforts to halt further distribution of the contentious Netflix production.
We have to find somebody that'll work with us that has dealt in the dirtiest of dirty business.
Central to the controversy is the series' inclusion of exclusive, previously unreleased video capturing Combs in private consultations with his attorneys, strategizing in the critical period immediately preceding his arrest in New York the previous year.
I am going to let you professionals look at the situation and come back to me with a solution.
Additionally, the documentary features candid footage of Combs interacting warmly with supporters and admirers during a public appearance in Harlem.
Off my back. I'm gonna win. As long as you win, be with it. I'll accept it.
Moments after that encounter, Combs is recorded offering candid commentary on the exchange, providing insight into his mindset at the time.
I need some hand sanitizer. Hold on. I got it.
I've been out in the streets amongst the people. Yeah, I gotta take a bath. Like the amount of people that actually I'm coming in contact with, like that's what I have to do. You know what I'm saying? It's like 150 hugs.
Combs' attorneys have escalated their opposition by formally requesting that Netflix withdraw the entire series from its platform, accompanied by threats of aggressive lawsuits. They allege that the production incorporates unauthorized and illicitly obtained footage, characterizing the project as a vindictive and biased attack. Executive produced by Combs' long-standing adversary Curtis, 50 Cent, Jackson, and helmed by director Alexandria Stapleton, who has maintained that all materials were acquired through legitimate channels and with proper clearances. The team, including Stapleton and Jackson, previously engaged in promotional interviews, such as one with Robin Roberts, prior to receiving the legal challenge. Jaguar Wright further alleges that she has identified precise elements deliberately excluded by Netflix from the documentary's final version, including multiple eyewitness testimonies and pivotal behind-the-scenes occurrences that were cut entirely. These removals, she argues, encompassed details capable of fundamentally reshaping audience comprehension of the overarching scandal. Wright attributes these editorial choices to a deliberate effort to mitigate the series' overall impact, preventing more explosive disclosures from surfacing and prioritizing a controlled narrative over unbridled truth-seeking.
I'm like, okay, more footage is coming out. Great. Who y'all gonna cut out? Who y'all gonna edit out this time? Like, cause that's what I'm gonna be looking for. I'm gonna be looking for all of the shit that they cut out. If the complete and utter truth comes out, 3 things happen. The entertainment industry collapses completely. Millions, possibly billions of advertising dollars don't get made. People go broke. Companies go under. That's why they fucking hate me. Not because I'm telling the truth on people. Because I'm telling the truth about the system. And I'm showing people the reality that the only thing that matters is that dollar. These entities, these companies, they don't care about none of these people. They don't care about none of these victims. They don't care about the perpetrators. They don't care about the prey. Shit, half the time, they're encouraging the predator. They don't care. It's all about the money.
Gene Deal had preemptively voiced comparable concerns several months before the documentary's premiere, alleging that Diddy leveraged extensive influence and alliances with other elite figures to evade thorough accountability. Both Deal and Wright emphasized that the core issues transcend Diddy as an individual, encompassing a web of high-profile connections who profited from mutual silence or received covert protection. They maintained that these intertwined relationships represented the very substance audiences anticipated the series would rigorously interrogate. However, the production conspicuously avoided naming or delving into these entities, leaving the expansive ecosystem surrounding the allegations largely intact and unprobed.
They saw what he did to Cassie with the kicking, the punching. They saw what they did to Cassie. They know that nobody in America liked that. So now these people are represented by a brand, whether it's something about the music, clothing, movies. They're not going to come out and speak on nothing that has anything to do with them. And they praying that they not on the tape doing crazy stuff, being oiled up in the whole 9 yards. They praying. So until the feds say, hey, yo, listen here. We got you on, hey, buddy, we got you on this tape. And girl looked like she was pretty young. We're not going to show it, but we need you to come and testify against Brother Love, P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Sean Combs. That's when they're going to start talking. And they're not going to be talking in his favor. When the feds come to them and show them what...
Gene Deal's credibility stems from his unwavering consistency over years of public commentary on these influential personalities, delivering identical cautions and recollections well before any involvement from major streaming platforms or documentary crews, a steadfast narrative that lends weight to his accounts in the eyes of many observers. By comparison, skeptics highlight apparent shifts in 50 Cent's public position on related matters across time, fueling speculation about whether increased exposure, platform deals, and commercial incentives influence modifications to the messaging once broader opportunities materialized.
Actually doing, that's his doing, and his learned behavior from the people that mentored him. You got to realize, man, he learned from Andre Harrell. He learned from Russell Simmons. He learned from Clyde Davis. You understand? When those people are telling you that they were heavy into the drugs, they was heavy into beating women and doing things at that age, at that crazy stage, that's going to make him think that he could get away with the same thing that they was getting away with back then. You understand? The things that he was saying, the touchy-feely between two men and all that stuff like that, man. All that, he learned that from them dudes. When I told y'all the story, when me and my man went up to Russell Simmons and he had a house and he had a man in bikini drawers in his bedroom, in his bed. You understand? Bruh, this is that he learned. I'm assuming he learned it from them. Let me put that. And I'm not going to say alleged because I saw that for my own self. My man was with me, Slick was with me, and we saw that for our...
In a notable counter-development amid the ongoing saga, reports confirm that Sean Diddy Combs is actively developing his own documentary project, which will prominently feature his sons Justin and Christian Combs. This marks the first instance of either son addressing their father's legal troubles and conviction publicly since proceedings commenced. Slated for release on the Zeus network sometime in March 2026, the series is anticipated to present an alternative perspective, potentially introducing fresh testimonies, emotional insights, and defensive arguments. Many observers predict it will inject additional layers of complexity, debate, and unresolved tensions into an already intricate and polarizing public discourse that shows no signs of abating.